Pre-war, I grew up actually going to First Baptist Church, the one downtown. I was back there when Dr. Jack actually, Hellfire and Brimstone, preaching to a 5-year-old who's. And so, yeah, I accepted Christ to avoid the Hellfire and Brimstone, and I grew up with what I now call the felt board Jesus. You know, great way of teaching kids lessons about in the stories of the Bible, and you know, great effective tool. But I discovered as I got older that the churches that I was going to, and I kind of hopped around a bit in my 20s and 30s, and I noticed that they were still teaching felt board Jesus. And I didn't really buy into it so much. And then, as it turned out, through a series of circumstances, on September 15th, 2001, was my scheduled medical to get back into the National Guard. And as you all know, Tuesday before, we had a major national tragedy, and it spurred me and encouraged and pushed me forward to serve my country, do my duty, be a medic, and take care of my brothers and sisters. So I ended up going to Kuwait in 2002 for just a standard mission. And then, for some reason, they decided that we needed to stay. We were supposed to go home February 15th, and the war started March 19th. So they decided that we needed to stay. And oh, by the way, not only this was in February, before we knew when the war was starting. By the way, not only are you staying, you're staying till the end of the war, and we're not really sure when it's going to start. And we had been there for 6 months already. Yay! That's what you get for doing your job well. So, right after Christmas, right after the New Year, the operational tempo, through the roof. We went from serving as a medevac crew. I worked on Black Hawk helicopters. I was the medic. We went for serving throughout the state of Kuwait, and the soldiers and Marines training there, from about 12,000 to, in a matter of 2 weeks, to 200,000. And our 3 shifts, our 3 crews, rotating 24 hours on, 24 on call, 24 off, with 2 helicopters. So we went from pulling maybe 3, and then on a lucky week, 4 missions a week, to 4, 5, 6 a day. When I got home, I thought everything was going to go back to normal. Everything was going to be great. I was going to go back to my happy place that I would go to when I was over there. Full coffee on the corner of 13th and High Street, and I'd sit there Saturday with my New York Times, my coffee, my bagel, and I was just going to enjoy it. But I couldn't even last 5 minutes. I don't know if you've been there, but they got big plate glass windows, and at the time, Sacred Heart was right down the street, so the sirens were blaring, and so much commotion, and the doors slamming, and people moving, and too much. And I panic attack. I didn't realize at the time, and so I left and hid and started drinking a lot for several reasons. 1, it's legal. And 2, it's legal. And it's not that expensive. And it's easy to hide. So I tried to live my life. I tried to jump back into life. I would go to churches, and people kind of knew that I just came back from war. And see, I came back at the very beginning. So there was a lot that they didn't know then that they know now. There wasn't stuff put in place then that there are now for soldiers returning. So I was trying to that train of thought. Anyways, I thought I could go back to normal. I know I said that already, but that wasn't possible. And the saddest thing too was most of the people around me that knew me well thought that I could go back to normal as well. And I kept getting the, why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? You never did that before. You never said that before. You never believed that before. I would go to churches. I remember what I was going to say. You know, people would ask me how I was doing. I'm like, you know, I'm really struggling. Oh, the Army's taking care of that for you, right? Oh, the VA's taking care of that for you, right? I've got to go get my kids and meet so-and-so for lunch or whatever. And anyways, I need to speed things up. One thing I need to do above anything else before I go any further is I need to thank Amy Weinkoff. It had been probably a year since I'd been home. That was a mess. And I don't remember all the details, but what I do remember was I was drinking a lot to sleep, to forget, to feel anything different. What she did was grab me by the shoulders and said, I don't want to find you lying in a gutter someday. And that's where I see you heading. That was a huge wake-up call for me. That was a year after I got home, so that was about 2004. This is what, 2012? That was a long time ago. It's been a long process of searching, of trying to figure out my place. About 4 years ago, I have what I call my official spiritual swearing in, where I discovered God in a way that I'd never got from felt toward Jesus. I was given a vision of working on a patient, blood on my hands, sand blowing all over him, eating it, and dripping sweat because it's 143 degrees outside. Then I'm not kidding. The vision is working on this patient, blood on my hands, vomit on my clothes, sand everywhere, and Jesus on the other side, blood on his hands. That's when I realized that God isn't clean. He gets down and dirty. And I apologize ahead of time, but he gets in the shit with us. Thanks, Tom. I ended up living with the authors of this book, and I did a lot of editing, and I read the book, and I'm even mentioned in there and quoted a couple of times, and this isn't what I need right now. This isn't what I want. I'm doing fine. Well, a couple of years ago, I had a major setback. I was in graduate school trying to become a counselor because that's what all vets want to do when we come home is help other vets. And so we go to counseling school, and I overdid it, and I had a mental breakdown, and I was sick for almost 2 years. So I've been in what's called, excuse me, it's not your turn, what I call medical rehab. Being a part of putting this combat trauma healing manual together I knew what was in it, kind of like we know what's in the Bible. We know the felt board Jesus. We know the stories. We know the answers. But what's really going on? And rally point, for those that don't know, the military term means this is where we meet. This is where we meet when the you know what hits the fan. This is where we meet. We all gather back here, and then we figure out what the next move is. So being part of this group, these group of men, and I saw her somewhere. My female cohort, there she is. I was the only female for the first couple of months, so it's nice to have another one. But like Jared was saying, is we help each other. We're all at different places in our spiritual walk, to use the Christianese, but also in our military recovery, our medical rehab. And, I'm going through this book now like I've never seen it. Well, part of that is the traumatic brain injury, that I don't remember things, but for the most part, this is all new to me, and the process is something big is coming down, and I'm going to be a part of it, and I feel it. And being a part of these guys and hearing their experiences, and I'm going to point you out, Tom. Tom said to me, well, it's to all of us, but he was looking at me, and he's like, have you ever actually invited Jesus to walk with you through your pain? We all walk through our pain. Those of us with PTSD do it every day, every minute of every day. And, that one I'm still chewing on, and that one I'm still processing, but it was impactful enough that I actually remembered it. Everyone in this room have experienced trauma, pain, hurt. We've all been let down. We've all been abandoned in that time or betrayed. But the great thing is that we don't have to fix each other. It's not our job. I just want to kind of sum up what Rally Point is to me, and what the men, and one of these days I'm actually going to remember your name, Krista. It's John 21:7. And the disciple that Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." Very small verse, but if you go back, Peter had just spent his third time in the presence of the living God, risen Christ. In the presence of a miracle, and he still wasn't ready. So his response is, "I'm going fishing." And the rest of the disciples said, "We're going too." And it was the following morning, when they weren't catching anything, when the disciple that Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." So I look at these group of men, where they're at, and appreciate their struggles and understand them. And it doesn't matter which war we were in, but every Tuesday we go fishing together.